Is your brand truly memorable? Would a person who bought from you a year ago be able to recall your name or say what they found compelling about you? The reality is that a lot of brands are instantly forgettable. Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the show for data-based marketers. You don't have to wallow in a world of having a brand that is meh. You can turn your brand into something memorable. And we're going to hear a process today that's codified it in a book that came out in 2025. It's called BrandJitsu. Listen in as we delve into the book's process, which begins not with a funnel, but with a loop that we've got to embrace. And we'll hear how to plumb the depths of our brand by thinking of it as an iceberg. Lastly, we'll drill into a brand's DNA to find out how we can spread its unique outlook. Our guest was tired of working with tired brands that felt like they were screaming into the void. So he designed a process that let customers feel, remember, and advocate for a brand. And he honed his methodology as a creative director. And he founded the brand agency called Make More Creative to help brands that had this problem solve it outright. He's also the host of the Rebel podcast, and he's a speaker and mentor for the Canadian Trade Accelerator Program. Let's go now to Calgary, Alberta, to speak with Michael Dargie. Michael Dargie, welcome to Funnel Reboot.
Glenn, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much. This is great.
All right, so we've got a made-up word for the title of your book. What is the title of the book?
Oh, it's called BrandJitsu, and it is somewhat made up. It pulls from different places. Brand to me is story. Jitsu, which is a Japanese word for technique. So it is the technique of story, or a story technique.
Yeah, so let's start there with technique, because if we think about how we as people, as consumers, go through the world, there's a lot of information being thrown at us.
Oh, yeah.
And we ignore most of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if you ask somebody to remember something, the things that usually bubble to the top are a good movie that they watched, good play that they saw, something that stuck with them.
Right.
Now, it's no accident that we're talking about this, because you've been in the world of plays and theater. Can you tell me what one has to do if they're going to reverse engineer that memory thing so that they can actually create that moment where someone makes a memory?
Oh my God. So clearly you've done your homework, and there's so much to unpack there. I'll start here. The preface of the book starts with a story of something that happened pre-pandemic. And just for background, I'm a company member at Loose Moose Theater. We're an improv company in Calgary, Alberta. One of the founding improv companies in the world. We do short form improv. And Keith Johnstone, he was a co-founder of the theater, would say that you have about 30 seconds where you can do anything you want on stage and the audience is going to be with you. They're just waiting to see what's going to happen. But after that, you need to create what he calls a platform, which is the audience needs to know, who are you, where are you, what are you doing, who are you with, and what's your relationship. Once you have that platform, then you can tilt the platform, which will create an emotional exchange. And again, I'm paraphrasing and putting this into sort of business context. The idea maybe being that, Glenn, you and I walk out on stage. Imagine this, it's an audience of 200 people in this little theater in Calgary. And I walk out and I'm like, hey, Glenn, if you're listening to this, I'm digging a hole with a shovel. I'm like, hey, Glenn, have you seen Dad? So instantly, within 3 seconds, we know that you and I are brothers. We're outside, we're digging a hole. So we've now created a platform.
And our heads are going into, is there something nefarious?
We call it the circle of expectations. Now we understand where the story can go. So the audience will go, now we're leaning forward in our chair being like, okay, now I can't wait to see what's going to happen next because I'm invested. I understand the context. You go, I thought you had them. That's the tilt. right?
Yeah.
What happened to dad? Is dad dead? Did we lose dad? What happens next? That is the immediate context I want to sort of bring to this from theater standpoint, is that we need to understand the circle of expectations. We need to give that to the audience so that they know. So we have this thing called platform. In my book, I phrase that as your brand DNA, which is what do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? And why do they care? So there's four things you need to know. Any audience, hero, customer needs to know the answer to those questions to understand whether it's for them or not. For them to go from leaning back to now leaning in. So that's the first part of the answer to that question. The second part is what makes things memorable. I mean, that's part of it, the circle of expectation, being able to put yourself in the place. But if I go to the preface of the book, which talks about an incident that happened, we were in a show called Maestro pre-pandemic. This theater, 200 people in the theater, it was packed. It was such a fun night. And 14 improvisers start on stage and only one leaves at the end.
And the audience gets to vote.
You get called up by random to do these scenes. The audience votes on the scenes. They score it from 1 to 5. Lowest scoring improvisers at the end of the gets kicked out. And then at the end, you have either the maestro improviser or you have a battle royale. Fast forwarding, there's 3 of us at the end of this show. I have never won a maestro. One day, maybe I will. But back then, I finally got to the top 3. My number got called, and other guys' number got called. We had to go up and perform a scene. So we perform this scene. Audience really likes it. It's 4 out of 5. They're just like, wah! And we're just like stoked with chest bump, like
we're going to win.
I'm stoked because definitely we're going to the final. And then a good friend of mine, Jen Bain, she has to do a solo scene, which is working without a net, right? You've got to come up with stuff all on your own. For a lot of people, that would be terrifying, but she just owns the stage. We have these people called scenographers, which bring out scene work. Calls backstage. She's just like, I need a couch. A couch gets rolled out on stage. Then she looks up at the tech booth and be like, spotlight. There's a spotlight on the couch. She walks out of the spotlight, rummages around in her bag, comes back on stage, lays down on this couch, and on her chest sits this little fluffy dog. She goes to sleep on the couch. The dog nuzzles up and goes to sleep with her. The audience laughs. The dog notices the audience. And the audience laughs harder. The dog gets up, little tail starts wagging like this. And the audience is like losing.
She's still snoozing.
She's still snoozing. So the dog's losing its mind. And then it looks at her and looks at the audience and looks at her and then nuzzles her to try to wake her up. She pushes the dog away and dives deeper into the couch like you would, right? 5 minutes goes by of this interaction between puppet, audience, human trying to sleep, and all the things that happen in between, from pushing away to the dejected look of the dog when it can't get its master's attention. Not one word spoken.
Right.
Lights come down. Audience explodes. I still get chills to this day telling this story. She gets a 5 out of 5. If they could have given her a 10 out of 5, they would have. She smashed it. And just for further context, because I think this is an important note, she's a professional puppeteer. She is a puppeteer on Fraggle Rock, if you've ever heard of that show. She's got skills. So this wasn't by accident. She's talented at telling stories. And her, like, I wouldn't say her unique talent, but one of them is the truthful stories. Like, she took this moment of a dog's life and this moment of her life and that interaction and told it truthfully with no words. I will never forget that scene. It made it into a business book. And that, to answer your question, is what makes stuff memorable, is when you see something that's true and it hits you here, you're like, oh, that just crossed the blood-brain barrier. You're never going to forget it. It's deeply impacted into your synapses because you get it. Anybody who's owned a dog or any animal understands this relationship. I hope that answers your question.
So a couple quick things there. First off, beyond that 30 seconds, we should imagine that in a theater and in life, that what we do is by default forgettable. The audience, the consumer walking by, store shop, billboard, website, email, doesn't matter. the default is ignore, tune out, yeah,
Right.
keep that blood-brain barrier in place. Breaking it down requires innovative thinking and truth. One of the best phrases I loved in the book is you must fight for truth and authenticity in your brand messaging. I think you've said it very well. What we're coming up against is the fact that our evolutionary brains are wired so that the only things that really get picked up by us are things that can potentially help with our future survival.
Yep.
And these are not necessarily based in language. They can use language. Words are important. You wrote a book, words can help, but we have to begin with that unvarnished truth. We need to do this. You rightly pointed out that creating a story, creating a character, as one does in theater, is an amazing analog for what we have to do when we're creating a brand. And we're going to, hop into kind of some of the ways we can trigger emotions, use associations and repetition, and help carve out a space in their brain where our product or maybe the founder and their message, their core belief, where that can live rent free.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So there's still a funnel involved. I might, hey, this is a marketing podcast, right? Does somebody want to get this far and not hear that we've got something and it's indeed the name of the show? But you throw a nice twist on it, Michael. You have a loop that you say we should attach with the funnel. Tell us about that.
Well, I guess if I could back up for a second, there's a philosophy years ago that was the seven touch. You need to have seven touch
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
impact. And I still believe that that's true to a certain degree, but I believe the number of touches has increased exponentially. I think that it's not just consistency that has to show up there. The story is part of it, but it has to resonate with the receiver, with the hero of the story. If I could just back up to talk about the hero for a second, the idea being that you need to be in front of people seven times for them to even notice you, and then you need to connect with them on an emotional level, and the idea being that we want to talk to the hero of the story. That's the customer. Your customer is the hero of the story. The whole loop we are talking about is predicated on this idea that the customer you're going after needs to be the hero in the story you're telling. So I'm not going to age you out, but I think we're of similar vintage. And my Star Wars is episode 4. And as a business, you need to see yourself as the Yoda to the customer's Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is on this epic journey to defeat the Empire, and he's going to swing by you to pick up some force along the way. And so your job is to give that person the force. It doesn't work the other way.
You're not the protagonist.
It's not about you, it's about them. Right. So if you can make sure that they get what they need on their travels to do the thing that they need to do, then you've already shifted the narrative. And this is I see this even on the biggest companies on the planet. They often get caught into we do this, we do that game, as opposed to the you need this and you can have it. So, part of this whole transaction has to be understanding that, so that you're speaking to them in the way they need to be spoken to. It's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah, again, their posture, you said sitting back, skeptical. They do have expectations for burning mental energy to see what you do. You need to give them that story framework so they can say, oh, okay, I think all day about how to solve the problems in my life. You help with my problems. And so I'm now beginning to set expectations, and hopefully by the time they buy the product or give it a trial, we can resolve expectations. But I really liked how that went around, because a funnel is so predisposed to the company thinking we.
Mhm.
And a loop instead makes it very clear this is us to them.
Absolutely. And if we look at the funnel for a second, the top of the funnel is people are brand oblivious. They have no
Yeah.
clue that you even exist. So that's the top of the funnel if we're talking about that. And we need to get them into that funnel, which is to help them become brand aware. If we're talking about the loop, the brand oblivious thing is we need to tell them about the thing, right? There's a thing. They don't know about the thing. So we need to tell them about it. Then they become brand aware. So they learn about the thing. Then they become a brand advocate because they now want the thing. Becoming a customer is you now get the thing. And a returning customer or returning champion, if you will, is the thing does the thing that you said it was going to do. And now they want more things.
And they're happy to tell their friends too.
Absolutely. And that's how it ripples out. Brand aware, the sort of the interest factor is they see what you do and why. So what do you do and why do you do it? Things of the brand DNA. The next thing is why do you do it? Pardon me. What do you do and why do you do it? Who do you do it for? And why do they care? So you've got the thing that they need. They're like, okay, I totally need a new roof. Awesome. Why do they care? Because of X, Y, Z. If you're talking price, it's a commodity. If you're talking emotional choice, it's something more powerful, deeper than that. Once they see you've got what they need in the way that they want it, they'll get the thing. And then if it works out, then they'll tell everybody about the thing they just got.
But they have to move from that. We live in a broadcast world. We see ads. We assume they're just for other people. And you throw a lot of movie references through the book. Here's one. I'm thinking of Taxi Driver, and I'm thinking Robert De Niro, and he's saying, "You talking to me? Are you talking to me?" That they have to make that leap from going, "Oh, this is just what that brand says, and I'm oblivious to brands. Oh, wait a minute. That brand could, there's an association between that brand and my, the what I feel viscerally about my problem and how the thing could fix my thing. Oh, now you're talking to me."
Right. So let me give you a personal example. I'm going to go back in time, recently divorced, move from the city that we raised our kids in. I moved back to Calgary, which was it's where I was born
Stomping grounds.
in Toronto, but came back to Calgary, went to Kensington, which is like the heart of the city, found a place to clear my head and be in the world again. I would just go for walks. And on the corner of 14th Street and 5th Avenue is a gym called Urban Athlete, and it's still there today. But the reason why I'm telling this story is I would walk by there, I'd go through the park and I'd come by and they've got this, fairly inexpensive bright glow sign with the day glow letters on it. So I know it's a gym. I can see it says Urban Athlete. I can look inside, there's equipment and stuff like that. And they have these messages that they would put out every month. One would be emotional and one would be the price, that would include the fact that they have limited space. So they're only taking on so many clients. Good on them. I was walking around Kensington for 3 months before I finally went in to get a membership. The thing that did it for me is that they were consistent, but also changed. Every message seemed different, but the same. It was still the same offer, but they might have been saying that they now only have this many spots left. So they're increasing the scarcity that would trigger my response. Good on them as well. I went in, I think I did a tour probably month 3, and I'm just like, okay, they got stuff. And I ended up meeting the owners. Apparently we went to high school together. So I'm just like, oh my God, so that's kind of a cool thing. Maybe another month or 2 went by before I finally signed up and joined this gym. You can say the 7-touch exploding brand technique is real in the fact that I saw their logo, I saw their premises, I saw their messaging repeatedly. It was on brand. It was not overt in the fact that it wasn't cringy. It just spoke truth. Whatever the messages were every month, I'd be like, oh yeah, I should do that. Or you were right. I am. It just spoke truth to me. But I was skeptical. And the skepticism bled away when I saw the consistency of the message. It always seemed to be on brand.
Exactly. And we're going to use this here because this brings us to the crux of the book, which uses the world's cheesiest metaphor to describe how one goes about coming at that brand. I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that there's the guy you went to high school with who's the owner, because we're going to see the linkage. I'm sure you know where I'm going between who that person is, what they are like, and what you saw on that sign. Okay, so now let's begin. What the heck is the iceberg? Michael.
So it's such a fun story, and it's I pivotal. It was a moment. It's like one of those moments where you get zapped in the brain. You're just like, oh, this is important. I should pay attention. I just finished a talk at a place called the ATB Entrepreneur Center. So Alberta Treasury Branch Entrepreneur Center. I did a talk on branding years ago. The guy came up to me after. He's just like, "Can I take you out for coffee? I want to pick your brain. I think I want to work with you." I'm like, "Cool." So we end up down in Kensington at a place called Higher Ground, and we're sitting there having a coffee. He's just like, "Can you make me a logo?" I'm like, "Sure. I love to make logos. It's one of our best things." Like, it's so good. And he's like, "Great. I want it to be a boat." I'm like, "Okay. Like, why?" And he's just like, "Well, I love boats and it needs to be blue." I'm like, "Oh, like what kind of blue?" He's like, "I'm blue." I'm like, "Okay." So because I'm me, I have a bag full of Sharpies. So I grab a napkin and I draw in the heat of the moment this iceberg. And then I draw a squiggly line. I might have put a little penguin on top. And I said, okay, so what you're asking me for is all this stuff that's above the surface. And in that moment, I said, I know this is the world's cheesiest metaphor, but work with me. And he goes, okay. And I said, you're asking me for this. This is the outward expression of your brand. This is everything that people see about you. And of course, that's where you want to start because then it feels real. There's all sorts of reasons why you want to start there at the top. I said, but I can't start there. I said, I'm probably not a good fit for you. And he goes, what? I'm not trying to neg you.
But would it be right that what you were thinking at that moment is the average target audience person that this guy wants to reach, if they see an image of a blue boat, they're going to go, meh.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
so what did he have to get into before we could get to the blue boat?
And when this is the, again, like a divine providence, call it what.
Right. The clouds parted, sun on your head.
Yeah. And I'm just like, so that's how you share your story. I said, but first you need
Right.
to find your story. He's like, oh, how do I do that? And I said, well, just wait. I said, but once we find the story, then we need to shape it so that you can share it. And this all came together in this one moment. And so I said, let's go down below the surface. We need to talk about your vision, your values, and your purpose. Like, why are you doing the thing that you're doing? He's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this.
I just came for coffee.
And I said, this is what makes the iceberg drift. This is what controls the direction of the iceberg, these three core things. Beyond that, the brand DNA, which is the bottom tip of the iceberg, is what do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Why do they care? Can we strip away all the marketing BS that we continually try to ascribe to our brand? Can we just see
Right.
it for how it is? And this is where the truth comes in. We can take, and I'm going to use this as an example, and I use it. Nike didn't allow me to use the image in the book, but I talked,
Right.
and rightfully so. That was also another lesson that I learned along the way. But Nike, if we reversed engineered, what do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Why do they care? The DNA of the Nike brand back in the day would be we make shoes to improve athletic performance for athletes because it actually improves their performance. Like that's the what do you do? Why do you do it? Who do you do it for? Why do they care? It is clear. I have some insight into that. My dad was an athlete under Bob Bowerman at the University of Oregon. So I got told as I was growing up. So I know it's true, right? It's not just written in Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog. I was told about the shoes that he made under the stands of the University of Oregon track. I knew about the weird experiments he did with glucose and nutrition to help with hill work. I also knew that Bill would help his athletes get jobs on the road crews in the summer or the lumber yard, specifically so that his athletes would learn that they didn't want to work in a lumber yard. They should stay in school.
It's no accident that you mentioned the word DNA when talking about the core. In the case of Nike, they're tapping into things like healthier people are happier. They're tapping into these extremely deep-seated things. Now, it begins with them, but the idea, of course, is the person hearing that when we get up to it being shared, that person's going to mirror, right? And go, oh, yeah, I'm into being happier. I'm into being healthier. So all of that gets taken on. But as you say, we got to get right down to the finding of what you have. This can be an amorphous exercise. People who go into improv, and I want to be on your troop, I can do this quite quickly. But for the rest of us, this is not a muscle we're used to working.
Yeah.
So one of the things you start with is values. What are your values? We get into universal belief systems here. But one thing you did that made it very practical was you said, okay, if you find that a little too challenging, here's a list of 10 values, pick three. You said, what are your anti-values? What are the things that you absolutely won't do, or the things that you absolutely think are BS? And I thought that that was a really good way because you can kind of, I remember from art class, they showed us the color wheel. What's your favorite color? I don't know. What colors do you hate? I hate yellow. Okay, well, look opposite yellow and you'll find blue.
Complementary color.
So, yeah, tell me about anti-values and anti-vision and anti-points that we can use to tease out what it is we really feel our brand is for.
Great question. Thank you. So here's what I found. When I do this work, typically we'll do this work with a founder and sometimes even their CFO, but mostly their CMO. Sometimes founder and money guy are not a great fit in this reality, but the idea being that when you work with those people who have the vision, and I ask them to come up with, and the list is like 100 values, like pick three. They're like, what? I can't pick three. They want to pick all of them. They're just like, well, I value this and I value this and I value this. And so I put up arbitrary guardrails for them. And I said, you're going to pick the three most important ones. And they're just like, how can I pick my favorite son? Right.
Right.
So that's where that came from. I backed up and I'm just like, what aren't you? Because that's going to help us figure out what you are. If we can figure out what you aren't, sometimes that reflection in the mirror can be like, oh, okay, well, then this now becomes more important than that. And that's where that work came from.
This is maybe a good point to bring up that dude you probably went to high school with who started the gym. Why did you start the gym? Well, I was at one of those big corporate gyms, and there were some things about that just sucked.
He wanted to do it better. He wanted to do it differently. He wanted to be specific with his intention. And that's what resonated with me. It's not going to resonate with anybody. There's lots of people who love good life fitness. But I've also met some people who are just like, dear God, I'll never go there again. That was disgusting. The change room just didn't feel good. Then you contrast that with Urban Athlete in Kensington, and you have a towel service, individual showers, lockers.
Right. Right. And that was created the way that the DNA of the founder saw it and what truly represented what they felt inside. So we've kind of found who the DNA is. And this is normally where people want to jump first. They want to, if we're thinking about a brand as a person, inject what kind of clothes they're wearing, what piercings, what tattoos, all that. But you're like, hey, finish on what's their voice like? What are the things that they would say or would not say? And you even help us. I loved how you jumped into a few of the other notable thinkers in this world. You mentioned the authors of The Hero and the Outlaw. Great book. These are people, and even going back to the Greeks who came up with the four humors. You bring up different ideas where we need to marinate a little longer in what traits this brand is going to resemble. When we finish with that, we'll have some meat on the bones, right?
Standing on the shoulders of giants, I think is the best way to say it. I mean, I didn't invent this stuff. They noticed it well before I did. We're talking about brand archetypes specifically, and that is, so when you're finding your story and you figure out your DNA, the what do you do, why do you do it, who you do it for, why do they care, blah, 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 like all that stuff, the unvarnished truth, the brand ethos, the vision, values, purpose, that's how you find it. And then how do you shape it? This is where we get into the archetypical work. We look at your brand personality. I have some really great downloads that you can get for free. Personality traits that map to.
Yeah, I'll vouch for it's over 20-page goodness.
Yeah. And so Geert Hoff's work on cultural dimensions and stuff like that, how that maps to your brand personality. So if you want to move to a different market, you can actually use Geert's work alongside our work, which is great. With the archetypes, there's stuff that I've learned along the way as I've done this work with these companies is that everybody wants to have every archetype. We can have like 12 different archetypes, right? What is it that you most resonate with? Like, are you the creator company or are you the explorer company first? And that's really important. When I do this with companies, This work, by the way, the whole find and that early stage stuff is like it's a day to answer 4 questions and then go through your personality. It's a lot and it burns out your brain. But the idea being that you have one primary archetype, one secondary archetype, I challenge people to make a case for a tertiary archetype. The primary archetype is the thing that you most are. So just understand that, live that, learn it, love it. That's who you are. The secondary archetype, in my opinion, is more important than the primary archetype because it's the thing that supports how you show up. If you're a creator archetype and your secondary archetype is the explorer, it's the explorer that allows the creator to exist in a way that it's never done before. If you flip those and you're the explorer archetype, but then the secondary is the creator archetype, it's the creator archetype that allows the explorer to exist in a way that's never happened before. And it's that moment that I see perfect clarity with the clients I work with. They're just like, holy shit. Like, I get it now. Like, and so we need to pay as much attention to the primary as the secondary, but really the secondary is it's the subtext, right? It's a good story. It's the motivation of the protagonist that is interesting. It's not what the protagonist does.
You're mapping the before to the quest. You bring up Joseph Campbell, that whole questing and storying, the traits that they have, starting from, as you say, the secondary that gives us the motivation, and the primary, which is like how they present on that quest. Those are the things that really bring us to all that stuff that will be mirrored by the person who sees this as the shape is being put on it. So let's talk about how we can be using some of the stuff we've talked about to target who we're selling to. This is important because we don't just drop all this stuff and start, if we're running Facebook ads or something, go, well, I'm looking for 18 to 34-year-old males, and they are doing these things and have attached to these interests. You say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Keep going with the archetype stuff. Keep going with the brand essence, the ethos that you
Yeah.
have, and those people will find you. It's like a tribe.
Yeah. 100%. I love the simplicity of an ICP, right? But I think that what happens when we traditionally talk about your ideal customer profile is that people, and I just saw this recently in a talk. I was co-presenting and somebody came up and talked about how to find an ICP. And what we need to find is Jill. Jill is a single mom and Jill loves to shop on Sundays. She's a vegan. My counter offensive to this is that we need to go into why Jill feels this way. What does
Yeah.
Jill need? Why is she? I mean, I don't, it doesn't matter that she's a single mom, but why she's protecting her child. She's choosing a healthier alternative. Why? That's what we need to dig into. Simon Sinek has got an entire
Yeah.
book on why. I want to go deeper than that because that's where I think the rubber hits the road. Or you can tell me funny stories and then give me a limited time offer. And I'll be like, oh, okay. So that not only do they get me because it's funny being 40, 50,
Right.
hanging up with a hip that's out. But then, give me that other side. So I think when we talk about ICPs, we talk about Jill, we're shooting for the wrong target. We need to get to the truth of why Jill needs what you've got.
Not to mention that if we've done the work of primary, secondary, tertiary, and we've not only done that with the brand, but with the audiences, a B2B scenario, all of a sudden, it goes a lot better because we've got a 4 or 5 person buying committee. And we have to figure out, right? We've got finance, we've got HR, we got IT. How are we possibly going to meet all of their needs? So you point out, look, we can actually explain how each of you are on your own hero's quest, and we built a product that will serve you, but for you to be able to complete that and reach profitability, which is what your model dictates, we can help you get there. We can pinpoint how to do that.
What just popped into my mind, like another sort of aha moment, is that as you're, because I'm a huge, I mean, B2B to me is P2P. It's still person to person.
Of course.
There's a buying committee that is in charge of allocating resources to achieve a goal, the hero's journey of the corporation.
Right.
So the corporation, despite what we've heard recently, is still an individual that has a
Mhm.
goal. They need to defeat the empire. You're
Yeah.
the Yoda to help that corporate entity, that human, defeat the empire.
Yeah.
Your offer has to map to that, because if it doesn't, it's disingenuous for you and for them. You can trick somebody into buying from you and then not deliver. I've seen that lots, like Big Four. You pick Big Four anything that sells. You can never go wrong hiring IBM. IBM, don't sue me. But that's the mantra.
Yeah.
There's much better options out there that map to what the actual corporation needs, and they can be successful. Uh,
We still need to do that homework because otherwise, what we're glossing over is each of the people on our buying committee, while they will salute the flag and say that they want to serve that one archetype of the company, each have their own
so
fiefdoms, their own motivations,
you got to
and
make here.
they're probably misaligned. I've been at this once or twice. I've not seen an aligned buying committee. Each one of them has their own preferred communication styles and vehicles. So we've got to think through all of this, right, Michael?
You got to stack it.
And if we do, it can work on multiple layers. But if we don't think about it, we just throw one thing at them, we know what result we're going to get. We're not going to be memorable.
Exactly. To your point, if we start with the hierarchy, you have to serve the need of the greater entity. If you're talking about the big corporations, you have to do that. However, you're 100% right that there's these little fiefdoms that exist and they have to be served so that they can escalate their they need to be championed as well with their needs in order to reach that. But whatever that big hairy audacious goal is, our job is to help align everybody to reach that goal. It's a matter of understanding. This is the find your story thing down at the bottom. That's the last time we ever talk about ourselves. We know ourselves. To thine own self be true. As we go up to shape your story, this is when we decide how we're going to show up. I have shown up in the biggest boardrooms in North America wearing Chuck Taylor's, combat shorts, tattoos, and a mohawk. But the idea being that that doesn't matter. It's the fact that we understand what you need and who you are, what do you do, why do you do it, who do you do it for, why do they care? We get that at a visceral level. These other companies, as soon as they figure out how they're going to dress, act, and interact with the world,
Right.
then they're going to attract or detract customers.
We have to do that. We can, yeah, as you say, the piercings and the tattoos, they can all come and people can resonate with that, but it's got to come to the point where I don't want to leave people thinking that while the book provides a wonderful way that people can experience something similar to what they get if they worked with you in particular, this is not just a exercise of closing out the world and getting out your Sharpies or your Post-it notes or your whiteboard and just thinking it all up from scratch. One thing that warmed my heart as an analytical marketer is you said you absolutely can and should bring your data to the party. Can you talk to us a little bit about if somebody is thinking, how do I know what communication style or archetype my brand might or sorry, my audience might be seeking, you point to places right now that they things they can put their hands on to help here.
Well, so it's a great question. Can you give me an example of what you see in your world so we can tie it back into this?
Let's say that I have received some customer reviews and they're not what I expect. I'm thinking that these people are either missing me or they're feeling that I'm missing them. I don't get them. I'm trying to use verbiage on my website, on landing pages, and I'm not getting the number of visits or form fills that I want. The emails are not getting the open rates or click throughs that I want. You are saying scratch more. The answer here is not to hire an SEO firm. The
Right.
answer is not to buy some firm that does reputation management on my reviews. You say the answer is look within.
I think there's a lot to unpack here. I love these questions. Our We tend to think that we're saying a certain thing and we're really hitting our ICP. Like we're just like, oh, I'm going to put a landing page, going to do this ad. People are going to get there. We're going to convert. Like if we convert 2%, we're doing great. Bullshit.
Yeah.
If you
yeah.
actually,
or maybe if profanity is going to do it, I'm not the hot shit.
If the data supports introspection, then you should look at that. The problem is, I mean, and here's the problem with all this marketing stuff, is that we're driving people, the top of the funnel, I don't know what you do. So we're going to tell them, here's what we do. This is who we do it for. And if that's misaligned, then people will hit a landing page and bounce out. Your conversion rate will be little. People might think that they need what you've got, but they'll realize that it's not when they get to that landing page. That landing page content is not converting for them specifically. So do you make it more generic so that you get people further down the funnel, or do you stick to your truth? I'm a huge believer in niching your offer and being really specific about the customer that you're serving, because they will be longer term. The cost is the same. You're just going to see a bleed rate of people like coming into your funnel and bouncing out of your funnel. And that's not a bad thing. Again, to your point earlier, find your tribe, find the people that need and love what you've got, and will tell others.
Those are your anti-audience, right? If they came, looked, and said, yeah, not me. Good. You figured that out.
I think that we should be tracking who we don't attract as a metric and celebrate it, because that means something. Because then the people that we do attract, we can be like, okay, the people that did buy from us, are they still with us today? Or did they buy once and they're gone? Because if they're still with us today, we nailed it. And those are great people. How do we, for lack of a better word, this is an awful word, how do we exploit that opportunity to have them advocate for us and continue to tell our story? If they come by once and kick out, then we've missed the mark. We didn't deliver on a promise.
Back to B2B for a second. We also have created some carnage if we've gotten to the point where they bought something, figured out that we were not them, and kicked out. There are salespeople who have spent time qualifying, negotiating, closing. If I have not done this homework, I'm usually sending garbage leads to sales, and I'm just making them mad at marketing. So anybody listening here, I implore you, for your career, don't do that. More is not better. Give them the people that will truly be long, profitable, lifetime customers. And there's a path to getting there. And it is not by saying, oh, you have a heartbeat, you're a lead, off to sales.
Poor salespeople. I have mad love in my heart as a marketing guy for the salespeople. Like I work firm 2000.
So, right. And we need to respect, and respecting them is giving them the right raw materials for what they need. Back to how we figure out who and how we are shared in this world. They are normally the ones who do it in a retail mode or in an e-commerce mode. There are other people that do it, but we as marketers must remember we're giving them the thought through process. So we can't shirk our responsibility here. The best way that I think you've summed up the Iceberg model is know thyself, right? Temet nose in Latin. And we got to practice that. It, as you say, will melt our brain for a day or two if we have to sit down and work through it, but it's well worth it. Michael, if people want to get the book or the worksheets or find out more about what you do, where can they go?
Thanks. Well, go to brandjitsu.com, BrandJitsu.com. And there's worksheets there for free. You can just download them and grab them. There's a paid version that has a little bit of verbiage alongside each one to help you. The book is there if you want a signed copy. I'm happy to do it. We ship all over the world. There's a few author copies left. Here's one of them. Boom. It's also available at Indigo and Barnes & Noble and Amazon. You can find me at michaeldargie.com, and makemorecreative.com is my agency.
Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, man. You rock.
Thank you to people who've listened this far to Michael and I hope that you take what he said, understand more about who you are marketing to and how your funnel works so you can make it even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.